الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا صدق الله مولانا العلي العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وآله وصحبه وبارك وسلم اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم يا كريم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, we shall continue with the 188th covenant from the Muhammadan covenants of Imam Abdul Wahhab Al-Sha'rani Al-Shafi'i rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah, in relation to the etiquettes of visiting our brothers, the adab of visiting the ulama and the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then he continues saying, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَسَمِعْتُ سَيِّدِي الشَّيْخَ عَبْدَ الْحَلِيمِ ibn مُصْلِحٍ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ يقول ما خرج أحد لزيارة عالم أو صالح ليستفيد علما أو أدبا إلا ورجع بما كان فوق أمله من ذلك. He said, I heard my Shaykh Abdul Halim ibn Muslih rahimahullah say that no one leaves to visit a scholar of the deen or a righteous servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the intention of gaining benefit, gaining knowledge from that scholar, or seeking adab or learning adab from them, learning how to behave, learning respect from them. إِلَّا وَرَجَعَ بِمَا كَانَ فَوْقَ أَمَلِهِ مِنْ ذَلِكَ, except that he returns with more than what he had anticipated. Yani, if a person went to see a scholar of Islam or a righteous servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the intention of learning from that scholar, with the intention of ilm, with the intention of adab, with the intention of learning the etiquettes of the salihin or adab of the salihun, or to follow in their character, he goes with that intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him more than what he had anticipated. Allah places more barakah in his knowledge, more barakah in his adab. So it all depends on your intention. जो जिस नीयत के साथ जाएगा वैसा ही उसको मिलेगा. अगर कोई बुजुर्ग या आलिम दीन की खिदमत में इसलिए जाता है ताकि उनसे इल्म हासिल करे, उनका अदब सीखे, तो अल्लाह ताला उस इल्म और अदब से वाफिर हिस्सा अता फरमाएगा, इतना ज़्यादा हिस्सा जो उसके गुमान से भी ज़्यादा है, जो वो गुमान करता था उससे भी ज़्यादा अल्लाह ताला उसे अता फरमाएगा. तो इसलिए ये पूरे बाब में जो हमने जो तफसील के साथ गुफ्तगू की, या इमाम शानी रहमतुल्लाह ने जो गुफ्तगू फरमाई, उसमें सबसे बुनियादी बात ये कि जब हम किसी बुजुर्ग, when we visit a righteous servant of Allah, an alim of the deen, a shaykh, a servant of Allah, a saint, the first and foremost thing that we should do is to refine our intention. What is your intention? Why are you going? If you remember the very famous story of Sayyiduna Shaykh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani radiallahu ta'ala, this is the month of Sayyiduna Shaykh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani radiallahu ta'ala. Imam Al-Shatanawfi rahimahullah mentions this in Bahajatul Asrar Sharif. That he was a student of the sacred knowledge, he was a young student, and in his days of the acquisition of the sacred knowledge, even in spite of the fact that he was the greatest of the ulama right from birth, he was the greatest of awliya right from birth. So he had his friends, class fellows. One was named Ibn Saqa, one was known as Abdullah Tamimi, and Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu himself. So they said to themselves that in Baghdad Sharif, in a certain province, in a certain area of Baghdad Sharif, there is a certain Shaykh who's appeared who calls himself a Ghawth, or people hail him as the Ghawth, the succor, in one of the great stages of wilaya, friendship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. एक बुजुर्ग है जो अपने आप को Ghawth कहते हैं, and he is such a saint that he appears when he wants and he disappears, vanishes within minutes, within seconds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted him much fame and karamat. People come in their multitudes to visit him. So let's go and visit him, they all said to one another. So Ibn Saqqa said, Ibn Saqqa was a man who was deeply engaged in polemics, in theology, in debates, in ilm al-kalam. He was a specialist in that field of debate and munadhara, polemics. So he said, I'll go to him and I'll pose such a question that he will not be able to answer. मैं ऐसा सवाल करूंगा कि उसका जवाब नहीं दे पाएंगे. वो बुजुर्ग के पास जाएंगे. नहीं, उसको अपने इल्म पर बड़ा गुरूर था, घमंड था. He was a person who was trapped ensnared by Satan, and he was a man who was indulged in self-deceit. He regarded himself as superior. He was bragging about his own knowledge, taking pride in his knowledge. So he said, I'm going to pose such a difficult question, such a complex question that the Shaykh will not be able to answer. I will render him dumbfound. Okay, that's what he said. So move on. Abdullah Tamimi, he said, I will pose a question, but I'll see what answer he gives. मैं सवाल करूंगा, देखते हैं क्या जवाब देते हैं. तो पहले की बनिस्बत इसमें ज़्यादा बेअदबी नहीं थी. पहले वाले ने क्या कहा था, ऐसा सवाल करूंगा कि वो जवाब नहीं दे पाएंगे. अब्दुल्ला तमीमी ने कहा, मैं सवाल करूंगा, देखते हैं वो क्या जवाब देते हैं. Sayyidina Shaykh Al-Qadiri Jilani radiallahu ta'ala, the greatest of all awliya, Muhyiddin, Al-Ghawth Al-Azam Al-Afkham radiallahu ta'ala, said, Ma'adallah, refuge with Allah. I will not answer any question. I will sit in his court with utmost respect and adab. I will gain knowledge from him. I will gain spiritual bliss and spiritual elevation at his court. I will not pose any question to him. So they all went. Incidentally, as they had anticipated, the Shaykh wasn't there. And when they looked back, the Ghawth appeared before them. So the Ghawth, Allahu Akbar, the Shaykh of his age, the Ghawth of his age, he looked at Ibn Saqqa with anger, with rage, infuriated. And he said, O Ibn Saqqa, you made an intention to pose a question to me, to ask me a question that I would not be able to answer. Listen, your question is this and your answer is this. Even before the question was posed to him, the Shaykh knew what was in his heart, and the Shaykh addressed Ibn Saqqa and said, this was your question and this is the answer. But because you came with an ill intention, I see that you are engulfed in the flames of disbelief and kufr. And how could someone imagine Ibn Saqqa, a great Muslim theologian, debater, but the Shaykh says, I see that because of your disrespect of a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I see you engulfed in the flames of disbelief and kufr. And then the second person, Abdullah Tamimi, the Shaykh looked at him and he said, you, young man, you came with an intention to pose a question to see what answer I give. Listen, this is your question and this is his answer. But I see that from head to toe you will be engulfed and indulged and immersed in the world and its charms. Tu dunya mein और दुनिया की मोहब्बत में गोताज़न हो जाएगा. And then he looked at Shaykh Al-Qadiri Al-Jilani with mahabba, with love, and he said, oh young man, you had come with the intention of adab and respect. You came with a good, meritorious intention to sit at my feet and learn from me. Listen, I am the Ghawth of this age, but you are the Ghawth of every single Ghawth. I will see that you will stand one day on the Jami' Mosque of Baghdad Sharif, on the pulpit, and you will say, قَدَمِي هَذِهِ عَلَى رَقَبَةِ كُلِّ وَلِيِّ اللَّهِ, that this foot of mine is on the neck of every single wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and every single wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall submissively, wholeheartedly lower their necks before you, and they will take your foot on their necks. And it happened exactly as the Shaykh had said. As for Ibn Saqqa, he became close to the Caliph of Baghdad, and the Caliph of Baghdad sent him to Byzantium to debate the Christians. So he went there, and then na'udhu billah, what happened? He was enticed and seduced by a woman, and then in order to marry her, he renounced Islam. He became a kafir, murtad, and then he moved away from Islam. He renegated. He became an apostate, as the Shaykh radiallahu anhu said many years before. Why? Because su'ul adab, disrespect. As for Abdullah Tamimi, he's the narrator himself. He says about his own self that I became very close to Sultan Nuruddin al-Zangi rahimahullah, the great wali and arif billah, and the great sultan, mighty warrior of Islam. And he appointed me at a position in government, and the dunya came to me from all corners. As the Shaykh said to me years before that I will be indulged in the worldly charms, so it happened that I was engulfed in world. Dunya came to me from all sides. And then the narrator says, as for Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, the man of great adab and respect and great decorum and etiquette, I saw, subhanallah, that one day he was stood on the pulpit in the Jami Mosque of Baghdad Sharif, where there were hundreds of thousands of people, and he said on that pulpit, قَدِمِي هَذِهِ عَلَى رَقَبَةِ كُلِّ وَلِيِّ اللَّهِ, this foot of mine is on the neck of every single wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I saw every single wali, every single shaykh, every single alim lower their necks before Shaykh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani radiallahu ta'ala. Adab and respect. Ba adab ba nasib. بأدب بنسي. Everything. ما نال من نال إلا بالأدب وما ترك من ترك وما فات من فات إلا بسوء الأدب أو إلا بترك الأدب. The one who have gained everything through respect and etiquette and adab and respect and reverence and veneration. As for those who have lost, they have lost everything through disrespect, through not having the correct etiquette and adab and respect. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us adab. So if we go to the alim, to the scholar, to the shaykh with the intention to learn from them, Allah will give us more than what we anticipate. But conversely speaking, وَمَا خَرَجَ أَحَدٌ لِإِنْكَارٍ أَوْ انْتِقَادٍ إِلَّا وَرَجَعَ مُحْمَلًا بِالْأَوْزَارِ. No one leaves his house to go to an alim of the deen or to a righteous servant of Allah subhanahu, to censor that shaykh or to criticize that shaykh or to object to that shaykh, except that he returns having been burdened with the burden of sins. Allahu Akbar. He returns back with a burden of sin, of evil on his shoulders. لأن العلماء بالله تعالى جارون على الأخلاق الإلهية في نحو حديث أنا عند ظن عبدي بي وفي نحو حديث المسجد بيتي فمن دخل المسجد لشيء فهو حظه. He then says, because al-arifina billah, the Gnostics, the ulama, the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they follow the principle, they are in accordance to the akhlaq ilahiyah, the divine akhlaq, the divine characters. As mentioned in the hadith, in the hadith Qudsi, as what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي, I am just as my servant thinks about me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah the Creator says, I am just as my servant thinks of me. If you think as Allah subhanahu being the one who grants shifa and barakah and rahmah, Allah will give you that. It is Allah will deal with you as you think about Him. Same way, the ulama will deal with you as you think of them. The wali of Allah subhanahu will deal with you in the same way as you think about them. If you have a good opinion about them, they will subhanahu give you barakah and blessings. If we harbour enmity and ill thoughts in our hearts against the ulama and the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will deal with us in that manner. Like for like, tick for tack. And as the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu, as the hadith Qudsi, al-Masjidu Bayti, the mosques are my house, are the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever enters the masjid for whatever intention, فَوَحَظُ, he will have it. If you enter the mosque with the intention of gaining closeness to Allah, you will gain proximity to Allah. If you enter the masjid to learn ilm, Allah will give you more than what you anticipate. If you enter the masjid with the intention of gaining shifa and gaining barakah and gaining success in both worlds and gaining felicity in both realms, gaining prosperity in this world and the next, Allah will give you more than what you anticipate. Everything revolves around and everything depends on what? An-niyyah, intention. This is why the fundamental hadith which comprises of the usul of our lives is what? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Every single action is judged according to the intention with which it had been carried out. The very famous hadith, as we heard before, where on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the first people who shall be brought to accountability will be the alim and the qari of the Quran, and the man who was affluent, and the one who strove in the way of Allah, the one who strived in the way of Allah struggled in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will ask this scholar, the qari of the Quran, what did you do in exchange of the blessings that I gave you? He said, I recited the Quran for your sake. Allah will say, no, kadhabt, you're a liar. You did that so that people call you a qari. People give you fame and fortune so that you have Facebook followers, so that people follow you on Twitter. You didn't do it for my sake. So Allah will instruct the angels, take him and cast him in Jahannam, in the fire of hell, because he did not perform the actions solely for my sake. Then a rich man will be brought. Allah will ask, in exchange of all of the blessings that I gave you, the affluence of wealth, the riches that I gave you, what did you do in exchange of that? He will say, oh Allah, I spent it in your court, for thy sake, in your way. Allah will say, kadhabta. Look at the gravity of that answer. Kadhabta, when the person will hear kadhabta, you're a liar. And that is enough as a punishment. Hearing kadhabta from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're a liar. You spend the wealth so that لِيُقَالْ أَنَّكَ غَنِيٌّ, so that it be said that you are rich, that you are very benevolent, you are generous. O angels, take him to the fire of hell, cast him into the fire of hell. A man who slew himself in the way of, a man who was martyred in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who struggled in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, left his family and his property and his businesses behind, and struggled in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until he was killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will be brought with blood staining his clothes, and say, and Allah subhanahu will ask him, in exchange of all the blessings which I had conferred upon you, which I had bestowed upon you in this world, what did you do in exchange of that? He will say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I renounced this world, I left my family and my property and my business and my luxury behind, I fought in your way for thy pleasure. Allah will say, kadhabta, you're a liar. You fought in my way so that people call you as brave, as a warrior, as a soldier of Islam, as a mujahid fi sabilillah. And you got that from the people. People praised you, so you got your reward from them. You didn't do it for my sake. So Allah will instruct the angels, O angels, take him to the fire of hell and cast him in the fire of Jahannam. So he will fall in the pits of Jahannam. Yani Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from ostentatiousness. Yeah, the main thing is ikhlas fi kulli al-umur. Ikhlas in every single thing. Whether people like it or not, whether people see it or not, it doesn't matter. As the hadith says, from the 7 types of people who shall be granted the shade, رَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالٍ فَفَالْتَ عَيْنَ. A man who remembered Allah in isolation. No one could see him. He wasn't in the masjid. He had no room for doing it ostentatiously. He did it solely for the sake of Allah. A man who remembered Allah in isolation, فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ, so his eyes welled up with tears. He cried and cried and cried in isolation. And similar, final part of that hadith is a man, رَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِصَدَقٍ فَأَخْفَاهَ حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمَ يَمِينُهُ مَا صَنَعَتْ شِمَالُهُ. A man who had given in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until, to the extent, metaphorically, obviously, figurative speech, until his left hand did not know what his right hand gave. Just gave in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of sincerity. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq to have sincerity in every action of ours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to visit the ulama and the righteous with righteous intentions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reap their benefit in this world and the akhirah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alamin.